All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine and Pipeline or CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today, I'm delighted to be joined from the other coast in New York by Kym Insana. How are you doing, Kym?
Great. Thank you so much for having me, John.
Yes, and Kym is the CEO and founder of Always On Digital, an Effie award-winning digital marketing agency. Wife and mother of four boys, believes that women can achieve career success while still being there for their families. She founded Always On Digital with the goal of creating flexible work schedules for her employees who desire income and work-life balance. Well, that's who can argue with that? And today we're going to talk about digital marketing and sales strategies. So, just let's bottom line it for a moment. How much have you've been in this business for a while? How much has digital marketing changed over the last number of years?
It has changed tremendously. So I started right at the end of 1999, early 2000. So at the time, everybody was just chasing clicks.
Hmm.
You were looking for a cost per click. I think what hasn't changed are fraud issues and things like that. You were dealing with it then, you're still dealing with it now. It's just in what medium that you're dealing with fraud. But overall, what has become advertising and programmatic TV and all of
Hmm.
that and digital out of home, billboards, that is all kind of said, "Hey, me too. I want to get into this digital advertising space," and moved on. And I would say those are some of the bigger changes versus, the early days of banner ads and pop-ups and, that type of video, which was really just animated images at
Right,
the time that now are much more sophisticated. But it's kind of funny because now also we have so much AI creative. So
right.
it's almost like going backwards where you're not using real folks anymore the same. So it's interesting, kind of almost like a little bit of a roller coaster. In
Yeah, and I think, and obviously the challenge for companies or entrepreneurs or anybody who's looking to advertise, it's they're overwhelmed with choices now,
Yeah.
and there's so many different platforms, so many different places, and they're getting different advice from different people. So, I mean, when you work with people, how do you help them figure out what the right channel is for them, and maybe help curb a little bit of their enthusiasm for channels that may not be the right fit?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing I like to do is try to identify what the brand personality is.
Hmm.
So if a brand is not going to be on the edgier side, they may not belong on a TikTok or
Right.
something like that because you really have to have content and you have to look like you belong there. You don't want to
Sure.
stick out like a sore thumb.
Hmm.
So the first step is usually trying to identify, where the brand really would belong from a, their image standpoint. Then the second part of that is where, either is their target audience or a potential target audience. Because sometimes we think that someone's our target, but there's actually a secondary or third target
Right.
that we're not even considering. So those are, like the one and the two right there. And then, of course, other things come into play. What their goals are. Are you trying to get people to, make a purchase or, just find out more information as a store locator, an app download? And there's different, platforms that really lean towards each one of those goals
Hmm.
and digging down because it's very easy to say, I have $20,000 and I want to put, 5,000 on Meta or
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, and then I want to try TikTok and Snapchat and, but forget about display or forget about Google. And,
Hmm.
maybe you need Google first, or something like that. So those are all the little things that we look at and try to take into consideration, respecting their wishes of where they wanna be, but also using our expertise as much as
Yeah.
possible.
And you touched on something there about brand personality, and I feel like this is something that has, really started to happen where companies want to project a certain brand personality,
Mhm.
but it doesn't fit with who they are.
Yeah,
And as you said, like, maybe they think, "Oh, maybe we should be a bit edgy," and you're going, "But that's not you, that's not what you're known for, that's not who you are." So,
yeah.
how do you help also with people, like, kind of make sure they understand what their brand personality is, and if they want to evolve it, that actually entails?
Yeah, and so, one of the key things, when you wanna try to be even edgier, let's say, you wanna be this edgier brand, do you have the resources to back that up? Because
Mhm.
sometimes when you go edgy with your creative messaging, there's responses and comments on the internet. I mean, the internet is not quiet. So you're going to have people that are jumping down your throat and you need to be responsive to that. And that is probably one of the most important things is that if you're gonna put something out there and then not be part of the conversation with them, then being edgy or whatever is probably not right fit for you. I mean, everybody wants to go viral and
Mhm.
have this overnight success, but really, toning it to what your resources are, and you gotta know who's there in your company or who do you have being able to do these responses before going down that path. But then there are brands that maybe have potential to speak differently to an audience, and we try to guide them like, have you thought about this? And but it
Mm.
always goes back to whether or not they have those resources, because what I never want somebody to do is put something out there and not have the resources to back it up, whether it be from a sales standpoint. They can't handle the sales. You don't want them
Mhm.
putting themselves out there. We've seen brands that had great customer service initially and were doing a certain amount of sales, and then they started to grow, and then they're on with their sales, they can't fulfill the
Yeah.
items for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and now customers are getting mad, and they're still putting out new products on their ads, and it's like, you hey, business to business, you may want to slow down a second. I know you are excited to get these out, but you're actually angering consumers in the process, and
Mhm.
somebody has to jump in there and address that. So, and that kind of goes back to being prepared and being ready for that type of change.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And I think, well, I mean, we even when you have huge resource and a lot of money, I mean, take Jaguar recently, they
Mhm.
decided to pivot completely, and I don't think that's worked out very well for them as they've, I mean, that was such a dramatic pivot from their traditional customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it works. Stanley did it, right?
Hmm.
The Stanley water bottles, they were really fishermen and,
Hmm.
targeting men. And then some ladies were like, hey, it keeps your water really cold. And it went into the influencer market. And now they have all these colors that are really appealing to women. They made that pivot, and they're probably I don't know their numbers for sure at this point, but I feel like they're probably doing pretty well with that target versus their original target.
Hmm.
And that's a case where it has worked. So sometimes you gotta test it and try it and try new things, but it's going all in is hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always go back to the Spinal Tap. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
Mhm.
the mockumentary where they go, there's a thin line between clever and stupid.
Yeah.
But but also on that, I mean, if you are going to do that, like you said, is setting yourself up. I think that's the part that people do miss, right? They think, if I just plow a load of money into advertising,
Mhm.
this is going to be great, without saying, am I plowing the same money, resources, thinking into this infrastructure to support and deliver on it? I mean, we get instances like recently, like my wife was trying to get an electrician. She reached out to some people on Yelp, still
Mhm.
hasn't heard back from them. I mean, so I mean, there you go. I mean, you managed to stand out enough for my wife to put in a call to you or an email,
Yeah.
but you don't have the bank, you don't have the follow-up.
Absolutely. And then you get a bad review.
Mhm.
And that hurts you when you do have the resources.
Right.
Everybody wants more sales, but you don't wanna shoot yourself in the foot and be in a situation where you can't back that up, and then when someone is ready to be your customer, they see all this negative press.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there is, that importance of making sure that the business is in the right place too.
Yeah. And how much is it important for businesses to understand that it's not like, you have marketing or you have, you're the advertising, and that's completely separate from everything else that's going on. Everybody's in their own little, silos. Because the fact now is that the customer experience is the interaction with your brand, regardless of where that happens in the organization, whether it's from a digital ad or whether it's from reaching out, whether it's a customer service follow-up call, a sales call, whatever, is that all it all has to align behind and support the brand.
Absolutely. It has to support the brand. And what happens is, if you take a premium product, for example, that someone's purchasing, there's great marketing behind it. They
Mhm.
make the purchase, something's wrong with the purchase, and then they say, "Okay, I paid all this money for this and there's a problem with it. I need it fixed." And they're not getting that same level of service that they were kind of sold in that ad. That's, very detrimental to the business. So, the expectations are there for that customer service and everything, every interaction with someone, whether it be, a physical store or online store. They want the website to be fast. They don't want to see a 404 error. They don't want,
Mhm.
all of that kind of has to match what you're selling.
Mhm. And you mentioned AI earlier. I mean, how are you how do you now say, okay, here AI is great, there are tools you can use and everything, but here is where the limitations are. Here's where you really need the expertise. I mean, how do you kind of differentiate that?
So, we use AI here and there, not to the extent for, let me rephrase. AI is definitely in all the technology
Mm,
already. And so, yes, algorithms and all of that. But in terms of creative other ways that we use AI in our business, maybe we use it to refine some plans for the most part, but I use the example of I have a 7th grader that used AI to do a paper in school.
mhm,
Not obviously in 7th grade, it's not gonna look like ChatGPT, and he had it done his own draft, so it was even worse because there was his draft and then the finished product. And my point to him was, you don't have the fundamentals to understand what's even wrong here.
mm,
And that's where AI scares me a little bit, because I think that people are kind of in that same situation where they may not have the fundamentals and they'll use it and maybe make decisions for, brands, or, claim their expertise in something and it's not the case. And then what happens now? You're playing with someone's money and you really don't know what you're doing and you're just, winging it because you build a plan or something. And that's where it starts to go down the wrong path. But for different taglines, you put a tagline in and you're stuck
mhm,
and you don't know where else. Like all those kinds of things, we love to play around with it. And to give some different ideas. It's just like hiring somebody else and
yeah,
saying, "What do you think?"
mhm,
And so that's where it's great. And then on a personal level, when I planned my trip to San Diego, I actually used it to give me an itinerary and tell me what I was missing. I put in
yeah.
what we were doing and I said, "What else should we be doing? What don't I know?" And that was helpful. So, using the tools for different things is helpful.
No, absolutely. One challenge that is coming up now, obviously, with with Google Ads and stuff like that, is now the AI search results coming in, and I think that's an area where people are still kind of struggling with that piece. Like, it was simple enough with Google. You could do your SEO.
Mhm.
Not saying it was simple, but you could do it, or you could buy ads or whatever. But now you have the AI search coming into the equation, and people shifting a lot over there. So that's raising new challenges.
Yeah, and some of the challenges with the AI, with Google specifically and also Facebook,
Hmm.
are their control over your ads and your keywords. And so, if there's a lot of little intricacies in these campaign setups where it's like you have to switch off the AI. So maybe they're putting in keywords, AI keywords, and you don't want them. And you have a client that, especially like in our position, we have a client that has to approve the keyword list. And here it's almost like it goes rogue because
Mm,
the AI tool is just automatically on and whatever. And Facebook has the same thing as well with the creative. So, if you don't have it selected, or even if you edit something and don't turn it off again when you're in the creative,
mhm,
making adjustments, you all of a sudden have AI creative and your client's calling you saying, "What ad is this? I didn't approve this."
right.
So that's where, sometimes these changes are great and it is trying to optimize and it's trying to find you a better way to have a consumer. But you give up control with a lot of those things,
Mhm.
or you have to really be on top of the way things, get changed. And sometimes you set up something on Tuesday and on Wednesday it's a different setup. You really gotta be on top of that because you could be in a situation where you're running something you don't
Mhm.
wanna run.
Yeah, and that's where it comes in, where it's important to obviously work with people who are experienced and who know what they're doing. Because from what you've outlined here, it'd be very easy for people to disappear down rabbit holes, probably without even knowing.
Yes, absolutely. And, we don't always learn these lessons from researching it. We learn
Sure.
these lessons because we've experienced it.
Yeah.
So sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that cost you money. My mom always says.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, with the digital marketing landscape right now, where do you see things? If you put your futurist hat on, where do you see things going? What's the next big change you see coming?
I think people are definitely investing more in connected TV and finding ways to, there's always new technologies coming about, different ways to track it and report back. But I find it funny that sometimes the simplest thing comes back, where they want to track in-store visits, or
Mhm.
kind of going back to taking sales data and saying, okay, how do we match this to something else? But people are definitely investing more and more into connected TV, with what we're seeing, and finding ways. There's a fraud issue for sure, and finding ways to make sure that it's clean, and the consumers, and then the little things, frequency. Are your ads being over frequencied, and so forth. So I see lots of movement definitely in that direction. A couple years back, it was video, so now it's
Right.
connected TV.
And
Um,
explain to the viewers what you mean by connected TV,
yeah,
just in case they're not up on it.
I'm so sorry about that.
Oh,
Yeah, so television, think of outside your cable box, you're watching TV, but you're using a Roku stick or Amazon Fire Stick, or anything that is kind of giving you that same, access to those different channels and so
mhm.
forth, but it's on a connected television device, and, those smart TVs essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and and you said that that's an area that's growing for advertising. I mean, it seems kind of funny, isn't it? Like, people originally was like, "Oh, cable TV and all that, like, there's too many ads on it," and everybody was delighted to move over to streaming and all of that,
Yeah.
and now streaming is going exactly the same way.
Exactly, exactly. I'm waiting for someone to come back with something that's like cable again, because
Yeah.
you're paying all this money. We still have cable for certain things, and then
Mhm,
we're a big sports household, so we have that. Then we have the, I don't know, YouTube Sports or something, and then there, for football season, the
mhm.
ticket, and then there's, all the channels you're buying, and your Disney Plus and Netflix and all
Yeah.
that. It ends up being more than what you were paying before. So someone's got to come back with like a smarter service to combine all these, and they'll probably call it cable again.
Yeah, they probably, but to your point then, I mean, that then raises the same challenge again. It's like, okay, which of these platforms should I be advertising on?
Mhm.
Like, should I be on Peacock, or should I be on whatever, Paramount Plus, or should I be on this, or should I be on that? I mean, it's challenging.
It is, and that's why we find a lot of advertisers will try to do, either a targeted audience and run broad strokes across
Mhm,
them. Sometimes they try to, focus on a specific event, or, channel maybe around the Olympics or something
mhm.
major, that aligns with what they're trying to do. We've seen that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so give me an example. Just, you don't, not naming names, but give me an example of a client you worked with recently, and maybe one that was that you did something a little different with, and maybe they were a little bit reticent about it, but it worked out really well.
So, we had a client, and it's not everyone's favorite platform, but X, Twitter.
Hmm.
It was more of a traditional, utility brand.
Right.
So we worked with utility brands, and then have run them where they're looking to get people to have, app downloads and things like that, or just even like research. And so we were using, some of the conversation things.
Right.
We do like conversation targeting around discussions and stuff like that. And this led a little bit more in the energy space. So
Hmm.
there's always conversations on the internet around that. So normally they would think, "Oh, maybe I need Google or something like that." But, when there's hot topics, maybe you do wanna go on a social media platform
Right.
that has a lot of hot topics. And it worked out really well because they ended up getting the downloads they were looking for, actually surpassed the goal. But it was because, if it's a hot area and then a hot topic, sometimes that's the right place to be.
Yeah, and as you said at the very outset here, is going where your audience is, and
Mhm.
sometimes, and I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is that oftentimes people, presume that their audiences are on certain platforms, maybe their own bias because that's the
Yeah.
ones they're on themselves. But it turns out that they're incorrect. They're actually, the bulk of them are on other platforms.
Yeah, and I find it's great to always, for us, it's important to continue conversations with other people and ask them questions. I was speaking at a high school, right in June, like May or June, doing like a career day, and
Right.
they had asked an example of an advertiser, and I was saying, you know what, we're actually trying to pick an audio platform. They were choosing between Spotify and Pandora.
Hmm.
They said, "What are you guys on?" And it was an education client, so they're looking to get, college applicants. So this is the
Oh,
perfect audience.
was it Spotify?
It was Spotify,
Yeah.
um, which I felt a little younger because 'cause I'm on there too, but I'm also
Yeah.
on Pandora, I go back and forth. But it was hands down Spotify or Apple Music.
Hmm.
So, I think it was the teacher and myself that had raised our hands for Pandora. And
Right.
that's the learning curve. You have to stay with the trends because maybe, we're thinking, "Oh, Spotify is great and it's so advanced," or I'm sorry, with Pandora or
Yeah.
whatever it is, but, you talk to your audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great example. Mind you, I have to say I've done a lot of speaking, but speaking to high schoolers seems a little bit intimidating to me.
They're on their phones the whole time. Like, a lot of times they start going on their phones, and then you're thinking, you're sweating up there. Not easy.
I know.
Necessarily recommended all the time.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks very much, Kim. All of Kim's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about you and what you do.
Thanks so much, John. So I started Always on Digital 9 years ago, and our primary mission was to help working mothers find a work-life balance. So we provide digital advertising and traditional advertising service execution. We work with agencies and brands across all media channels, and our goal is to provide a high customer service as well as high-performing campaigns.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again, Kim. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.